The year 2016 was a year of a presidential election in America, and the process started when the Democrat and Republican political parties held televised debates amongst their candidates. The American people could then choose the two nominees as their party's presidential candidate. And then the American people would elect one of these two candidates as their president for the years of 2017 to 2021. But a very strange thing happened during two of the debates amongst the 10 Republican presidential candidates. But before I start the discussion, I would like to provide some background information that will assist in understanding just what happened during these two debates. Manly P. Hall has long been considered as one of the world's greatest writers on the secret doctrine inside the occult religion known as the ancient mystery religion. And to set the material that will follow, I would like to quote from page 5 of his book entitled The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Symbolism fulfilled the dual office of concealing the sacred truths from the uninitiated and revealing them to those qualified to understand the symbols. What Mr. Hall just said was that those who believe in this mystery religion use symbols to let other initiates know that they are indeed members as well. Notice that the average American who sees an individual displaying the symbol has absolutely no idea what it means and lets it pass without comment. Now that we understand that, let me illustrate what Mr. Hall meant by showing you slides taken during two of the televised Republican debates during the campaign of 2016. This slide shows once again the 10 candidates on the stage after being introduced by the moderator. This was, of course, the first part of all of the debates. During the playing of the national anthem, these three candidates were shown with their right hand over their heart, the traditional way of showing allegiance to the American nation. Notice that the hand is placed with the entire palm against the heart with the fingers extended. Now this is the first of two pictures that I would like to show you that were taken during the playing of the national anthem before the questioning of the candidates began. Notice that Senator Ted Cruz, the man on the right, is standing to the left of Donald Trump, another of the candidates running for the presidency. Please notice that Mr. Trump is wearing a blue tie. Also notice that the senator has placed his right hand inside the left side of his coat, while the others have placed their hand over the heart, the traditional position for those during the playing of the national anthem. This is the second picture of the senator standing to the left of Mr. Trump, shown wearing a red tie in this instance as compared to the blue one he wore in the first picture. In other words, the senator was photographed twice displaying a symbol, one not typical, while listening to the national anthem. According to Mr. Hall, the purpose of this symbol is to inform others that the displayer also is a member of the religion. I would like to return to the first picture I showed in this sequence, and it shows that the senator knew. Senator Cruz knew the proper placement of his hand while listening to the national anthem. That must mean that Senator Cruz was knowingly placing his hand in that position because he was telling some people that he was somehow different from the other candidates. He willingly displayed this symbol during two different debates. There must be a reason he did this. Now in the next few slides I will discuss a worldwide secret society that uses symbols to transmit information. That one displaying a symbol is a member of the Masonic Lodge, this worldwide secret society. These slides will help you understand what the next slides will mean as we progress through this presentation. There is compelling evidence that the senator is not a member of the Masons. This is Senator Bob Dole, a senator from Kansas and the Republican Party's nominee for the presidency in 1996. And this is a photograph of Bob Dole as published on pages 30 and 31 of the January 1994 Scottish Rite Journal, the official magazine of the Masons. This is the paragraph from those pages showing that the senator is a 33rd degree Mason, alongside a photograph of him addressing the Masonic Lodge. This is a photograph copied from Google Images that was taken off of a Fox News broadcast wherein Senator Dole gave his thoughts about the candidacy of Ted Cruz in 2016. It appears as if the headline reads, "Former GOP candidate Bob Dole says Donald Trump better than Ted Cruz." The New York Times newspaper printed an article on January the 20th, 2016 about Senator Dole's comment about Senator Ted Cruz if he were successful in securing the nomination of the Republican Party. I don't know how he's going to deal with Congress. Nobody likes him. These are rather strange things to say if Senator Cruz was a fellow member of the Masonic Lodge, because Masons take oaths to support their fellow Masons in their endeavors. That means that Dole would have supported Cruz in the Republican primaries if Cruz was a Mason. So we are left with the only other option. Ted Cruz is an initiate of a secret religion that uses the symbol as a way of revealing that the giver is a member. And to show you that Dole was a Mason who supported his fellow Masons, he nominated Jack Kemp as his vice presidential candidate for the 1996 campaign. And here is a rather poor quality copy of the October 16th, 1986 Buffalo New York News newspaper that announced the selection of 3 Masons to the 33rd degree. And this is the photograph of Jack F. Kemp, Dole's fellow 33rd degree Mason. So these photographs will stand as evidence that Masons support their fellow Masons. Now that we have introduced you to the use of a symbol as a way of informing others of a truth, let me now start the explanation of what this symbol means. The lion's paw. A brief review of an ancient symbol. A presentation of Publius Productions. Delivered on February the 27th, 2017. Permission is hereby granted to make copies of this presentation. My name is Ralph Epperson, and I've been studying secret societies and their symbols for over 50 years of my life. As part of my study of the conspiratorial view of history. And I must say that nothing surprises me anymore. I have discovered a symbol of the past that has been utilized for thousands of years that identifies the displayer of the symbol as having been born again to the ancient mystery religion. That sign is made by making a fist and then slightly curling the tips of the fingers so that the tip of the fingers are tucked under the palm. The thumb is then moved into the hole made under the palm by a slight opening of the fist. Ever since I found the first photograph of someone giving this sign, I have been looking for other examples in pictures and paintings, and I've taken the key examples of it that I have found and put them together into this review. May I take a few moments and add that if any of you should find additional examples of the lion's paw in history, I would ask that you send me a copy of the photograph or the portrait and what book or magazine it was in, meaning the title of the source, the publication or publishing date, and the author if it's in a book to my mailing address, which is Ralph Epperson, 3100 South Philomena Place, Tucson, Arizona, 85730. I would truly appreciate it. Let me further explain that this sampling of pictures and portraits is by no means complete, nor even exhaustive, as I just collected these photographs and paintings as I found them, not making any specific attempt to locate others in other publications. I must also apologize for the poor quality of some of these photographs and paintings, but many of them are photocopies taken from books, magazines, or newspapers. And I am only attempting to introduce a subject that, as far as I can tell, has not been researched by any other historian. When I first started the research for my book in the 1960s, I discovered the world of the ancient mystery religion. Quite simply, this is a religious view of man with a different God. It is still believed in worldwide even today. One of the most startling things I discovered as I read was that this religion has as its God a being that they identify by the name Lucifer. Lucifer. The Bible calls this being Satan or the devil, but the ancient mystery religion calls him Lucifer. This worship is 6,000 years old and is concealed in the worship of every god of the past. This is how it was explained by Albert Mackey, a 33rd degree Mason, on page 497 in his two-volume set entitled An Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, under the heading of The Ancient Mysteries. Each of the pagan gods had, besides the public and open, a secret worship paid to him, to which none were admitted but those who had been selected by ceremonies called initiation. This secret worship was called the mysteries. That means that within any religion there's a small circle of believers called initiates who conceal the fact that the God being worshipped is in truth the devil discussed in the Bible and not the God of the remaining believers. For those who are interested in this study, may I recommend that you consider reading my second and third books, The New World Order and Masonry Conspiracy Against Christianity, Evidence that the Masonic Lodge has a secret agenda. Or you could search the internet for an 8-hour DVD that I have produced entitled Conspiracy Against Christianity. This is a review of this entire subject of the ancient mystery religion. I will be mentioning that certain individuals discussed during this presentation are 33rd degree Masons, and I would like to explain just what that means. The Masons initiate men by degrees, and the 33rd degree is the highest degree attainable, and it is only conferred by invitation. The Mason cannot become 33rd degree Mason unless he is invited into that degree. Now let me start documenting the use of the hidden symbol called the lion's paw. This Egyptian hieroglyphic shows an Egyptian pharaoh being prepared for eternal life on a table representing a lion. Notice that the lion's head is on the left near the pharaoh's head. So the lion apparently symbolized eternal life to the Egyptians. This hieroglyphic shows someone in a lion's costume kneeling or sitting by a corpse. Notice that the lion is holding the Ankh, an Egyptian symbol of eternal life. I think that this would be an appropriate place to mention this comment made by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, one of the major writers support of in support of the ancient mystery religion. This is what she wrote on page 265 of her book entitled The Secret Doctrine, Volume 3. The mysteries preceded the hieroglyphics, they gave birth to the latter. This means that the ancient mystery religion is around 6,000 years old. This drawing comes from a book entitled The Lost Keys of Freemasonry by Manly P. Hall. Notice that in this picture the initiate holds the Ankh in his hand. The words underneath the picture in the book explain by this grip of the lion the man is raised to life, meaning he's been born again. This is a picture of a statue of an Egyptian pharaoh named Khufu, or Cheops in the Greek language, the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza outside of Cairo, Egypt. This is the earliest example of the lion's paw that I have found. Khufu was the Egyptian pharaoh for 23 years, from 2551 BC to 2528 BC. That means that the Egyptian pyramid he built is around 4,500 years old. This photograph appeared in my local newspaper, and the article that accompanied it said that the statue represented the high priest Kai. It then reported that he served all of the pharaohs who built the 3 pyramids on the Giza plateau, including the 3rd pyramid to the right, called the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is a collection of photographs of another Egyptian pharaoh named Net-Jereket. You will notice that he is also showing the lion's paw symbol. While I am discussing the Great Pyramid, I would like to bring to your attention some of the writings of Mr. Hall about its purposes. First, I would like to show you a drawing of a cross-section of the pyramid showing what has been called the King's Chamber in approximately the center of the pyramid. Even though it is called the King's Chamber, it has never contained the mummy of the pharaoh Khufu, or for that matter, any other pharaoh. Therefore, it was never intended to be a tomb. Now let me return to Mr. Hall's writings. These comments are all found on page XLIV, Roman numerals for page 44 of his book entitled Secret Teachings of All Ages. The pyramid was in reality the supreme temple of the invisible and supreme deity. It was the first temple of the mysteries. So he has concluded that it was built of a temple, built as the temple of initiation into the great mystery religion. Once again, it was never built as a tomb for Khufu. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky wrote this as confirmation of what Mr. Hall wrote about the purpose of the Great Pyramid. The mysteries and the initiations took place in that pyramid, for indeed it was built for that purpose. By the way, this is a representation of the Great Pyramid of Giza as one part of the two-sided Great Seal of the United States as displayed on the back of our dollar bill. This seal was unanimously approved in 1782 by this nation's founding fathers. It might be helpful if I now discuss just what a seal is. This is a wax seal created when the king sealed some treaty or other document by letting hot wax drip onto its surface. As it cooled, he would stick his ring into the wax to make an impression. It would harden, and the wax would stay in that position. The wax seal served two purposes. It would reveal if the document had been opened prior to reaching its destination, because if it had been broken, it would have been possible to restore it to its original condition. And it could also certify that the king had made the document official, because only the king had the ring that had made the impression. Now, nearly almost all governments in the world have only one seal. So if the American seal has two sides, one side has no direct purpose. So it must have a hidden purpose. And Mr. Hall tells us that it does on page 181 of his book entitled The Secret Destiny of America. This is what he wrote. The Great Seal set forth the purpose for this nation, as that purpose was seen and known to the founding fathers. And he added these comments on page 177. The design on the pyramid side is related to the old mysteries. What he was saying was that these symbols on our dollar bill are related to the ancient worship of the ancient mystery religion, and that America does have a secret destiny. This is more completely discussed in my 4-hour DVD set entitled America's Secret Destiny, Evidence that America's Founding Fathers Planned a Secret Future for America. This DVD has been posted on the internet, and I believe it is simply stated so that the viewer can easily see what this nation's future is. This statue is found in my hometown of Tucson, Arizona, and is of Father Eusebio Kino, an Italian Jesuit missionary. By the time of his death, he had established 24 missions in Latin America and the United States. He established the beautiful mission south of Tucson called San Javier del Bac, and that is why his statue is displayed here in Tucson. Perhaps the most famous displayer of the lion's paw symbol was Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of France. Volume 3 of the 4-volume book entitled 10,000 Famous Freemasons states that he was a member of the Masons, as were his 4 brothers. So that could be the reason he displayed the lion's paw. But there might be another reason. It could be that he became an initiate of the ancient mystery religion, and as such, he was taught about the use of the lion's paw as a way of letting other initiates know that he was one as well. I have read reports that claim that he was a member of the Illuminati, the secret society created in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, but this has been difficult to verify because if he was, the traditional historians of the day probably would not have revealed that fact. This drawing of Napoleon accompanied an article that questioned whether or not he was poisoned, but modern science has recently discovered that he was not. This report comes from a website on the internet called ancientcode.com, but this story has been repeated in numerous other websites and books. The website said this about Napoleon's desire to spend a night in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, the one built by Khufu. Napoleon spent around 7 hours inside the king's chamber. He came out at dawn, pale and frightened. When his most trusted men asked him what had happened, Napoleon replied, even if I told you, you would not believe me. Then the website finished with this thought: whatever Napoleon experienced is a secret that he took to his grave. So we do not know for certain what happened to Napoleon in that chamber, but it could be that he learned the secret of the ancient mystery religion, and that is the reason he is shown giving the lion's paw. This photograph is of Annie Besant, the only woman I have found so far giving the sign. She was the president of the occult, meaning hidden or secret, Theosophist Society, founded by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a believer in Lucifer, also called Satan, the devil. It is quite certain that Annie was also a believer in this being called Lucifer. This is a photocopy of page 107, taken from the book entitled Freemasonry Exposed, written by Captain William Morgan, reportedly a Mason for 30 years. The book was published in 1826, and it contains the actual rituals of certain of the degrees of the Masonic Lodge. The drawing on the right side shows that the lion's paw in the red rectangle was an official Masonic symbol back in 1826. This photograph of Lieutenant Elisha Hunt Rhodes is from a 1993 book entitled Freemasons at Gettysburg, a major Civil War battle by Sheldon A. Munn. The caption above the photograph inside the book said that Lieutenant Rhodes was a member and worshipful master, meaning he was the equivalent of the lodge president of Harmony Lodge No. 9, Cranston, Rhode Island. He was also the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island in 1892 to 1893, meaning he was the equivalent of the president of all of the Masons in his state. Although the lieutenant is concealing his lion's paw inside his uniform jacket, this is still an important picture because it connects even the concealed form of displaying the lion's paw to the Masonic Lodge. Confederate Captain Henry Wirz was the commander of the notorious Andersonville prisoner of war camp during the Civil War, with over 12,000 Northern prisoners dying while under his watch in 1864. Wirz was held responsible for their deaths and put on trial for war crimes. He was found guilty and sentenced to hang in Washington, D.C. on November the 10th, 1865. And he was photographed giving the lion's paw symbol. General George Crook let General George Custer be the first to lead his troops into the Battle of the Little Bighorn on June the 25th, 1876, even though General Crook knew that the Indians had as many as 3,000 braves ready to battle him and his 265 troops. I believe that this was intended to make certain that Custer would not survive. I explained why a conspiracy decided that General Custer must not survive the battle in my DVD entitled Jesse James, the Famous Outlaw, Lived to be 103. I discuss how the people who run America feared that the popular general would run for the presidency in the election of 1876, and that they felt that they could not control him should he be elected. And the next picture shows the reason that General Custer was murdered. This is Rutherford B. Hayes, who was elected as president in 1876 and served one term in office until 1881. And here he is shown giving the lion's paw symbol. He is not listed in the book entitled 10,000 Famous Freemasons, so he is obviously showing that he was a member of the ancient mystery religion. That means that he was the choice of the unelected power that runs America and not General Custer. French sculptor Frederic Auguste Bartholdi was the creator of the Statue of Liberty, and it was formally presented to the city of New York on July the 4th, 1880. Even Karl Marx, the so-called father of communism, displayed the concealed lion's paw in this photograph taken in about 1848. While there is no direct evidence that he was a member of the Masonic Lodge, there is evidence that he became a worshiper of Satan while in college. This is a book written or entitled Marx and Satan, written by Reverend Richard Wurmbrand in 1986, and it provides the evidence that Marx was born of Jewish parents, became a Christian as a young man, but later joined a satanic cult when he was in college. This cult was led by Joanna Southcott, a satanic priestess who claimed to be in contact with the demon named Shiloh. Later, the evidence indicates that Marx was a member of an organization that was a direct descendant of the Bavarian Illuminati. This is the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, whose published works, according to the Wikipedia, have exerted a profound influence on Western philosophy. This source states that his father was a Lutheran pastor, but it appears as if young Friedrich did not absorb the message of Jesus. In his book entitled Daybreak, published in 1881, he began his campaign against morality by proclaiming that God is dead. God is dead. For the sake of the purists, this book is still exerting a profound influence on Western philosophy, as it is being reprinted by Cambridge University Press in England in a second edition of November 13th, 1997. But by his display of the lion's paw symbol, young Friedrich is acknowledging that he too was aware of the ancient mystery religion. Vladimir Lenin was the brutal communist dictator of Russia and the originator of the Communist Revolution of 1917. As you can see, he is displaying the lion's paw. This is Leon Trotsky, the communist who assisted his fellow communist Vladimir Lenin in establishing the communist government in Russia after the revolution that started in 1917. After Lenin died and Trotsky was exiled, the communist government of Russia was taken over by the brutal dictator Joseph Stalin. These two photographs show him giving the lion's paw symbol. Volume 4 of this book does not list him as being a member, so it can be safely assumed that he was admitting that he was an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. Lenin and Stalin together were responsible for the murder of over 40 million Russians in the bloody communist revolution that started in 1917. And here are pictures showing these two mass murderers giving the lion's paw symbol. These are two photographs of John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. They show that Mr. Booth was a member of the Masons, but it is also conceivable that he was an initiate into the ancient mystery religion. He was also a member of another secret society known as the Knights of the Golden Circle. This photograph is of the two famous outlaws, Jesse James on the left and his brother Frank on the right. This picture is obviously on the cover of this book written about the family of these two outlaws. Jesse is giving the symbol of the Knights of the Golden Circle, the group funded by the European international bankers to start the Civil War in America. He later became the national leader of this organization. Frank is shown giving the lion's paw because he was a member of the Masonic Lodge. Jesse James later became a 33rd degree Mason by invitation. Civil War General Tecumseh Sherman was a Northern general well known for his march to the sea in the South near the end of the Civil War. It was called a scorched earth policy, which he and his troops inflicted on the South near the end of the war. Volume 4 of this book does not list him as being a member, so if this is true, then this photograph shows him giving the lion's paw as a sign of his being an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. History has recorded that Frank fought with the rebel force called Quantrell's Raiders, led by William Clark Quantrell during the Civil War. And William Clark Quantrell was a 33rd degree Mason by invitation. And that Jesse fought with Bloody Bill Anderson, described as a lieutenant of the parent Quantrell's Raiders. Bloody Bill in this photograph is shown giving the sign of the Knights of the Golden Circle. This is a picture of Alan Pinkerton, the founder of the famous Pinkerton Detective Agency, and he is shown giving the lion's paw symbol. He is not listed in this book, so it must be that he was an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. That photograph of Mr. Pinkerton was taken from this picture of him with President Abraham Lincoln and an unidentified Union officer. Both of these men are shown giving the lion's paw symbol. You will notice that it appears as if the president is totally unaware of the two men giving the sign. This is another picture taken around the same time as the first, and once again President Lincoln appears to be totally unaware of the two individuals displaying the lion's paw symbol. And here is a drawing of the president being shot by John Wilkes Booth. Here shown giving the lion's paw symbol. One can only wonder if the president had paid more attention to the dangers inherent in those who show their involvement with the lion's paw symbol, he might not have been assassinated by those who give the lion's paw symbol. Salmon P. Chase was the Secretary of the Treasury in President Lincoln's Civil War cabinet. Mr. Chase is not listed in this book, so if he was not a Mason, he must have been an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. Mr. Chase was able to get Congress to create a temporary privately owned central bank during the war that had the power to create money out of nothing and then loan it to the Northern government at interest. He is the individual that the Chase Manhattan banks are named after, and he has been photographed showing that he was an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. This is a photograph of Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, from the back cover of his book of essays entitled Satan Speaks, Giving the Lion's Paw. This is the first of two pictures of some other contemporary individuals, the English rock band called the Beatles. It seems to have been taken when they were younger, but more importantly, it shows that at least two of them had learned about the lion's paw. Paul McCartney and John Lennon are clearly giving the lion's paw symbol. And this is the second photograph apparently taken when they were a little older. In this picture, only Paul McCartney is shown giving the lion's paw. Neither of these two Beatles are listed as being members of the Masons in this book. While I'm discussing the Beatles, there are two more examples that confirm that the group seemed to know about the ancient mystery religion. This is a picture of their 1967 album entitled Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This album has been called, quote, the most important rock and roll album ever made, end quote. It featured a collage of pictures of, quote, some of their favorite celebrities, end quote, and I would like to discuss two of these individuals. The first is Aleister Crowley, called by the English popular press the wickedest man in the world. He was a writer in the occult, meaning one believing in a hidden religion. When Mr. Crowley went to Egypt in 1904, he claimed he had been contacted by a supernatural entity who dictated a book to him. He wrote it down as he was instructed and then had it printed into a book form entitled The Book of the Law. The Book of the Law. I would like to quote several brief passages to show you exactly what this man was asked to write. Crowley starts with this brief explanation on page 9 of what will follow in his book. This book lays down a simple code of conduct. Do what thou wilt. Do what thou wilt. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. All events are equally lawful. This is teaching that there are no moral absolute. It is teaching that all men should be free to decide for themselves what is right or wrong in their own mind. If you want to murder, you are free to murder. If you want to rape, you are free to rape. If you want to plunder, you are free to plunder. This is what Crowley meant by his new code of conduct. The following are briefly some of the thoughts dictated to Mr. Crowley by this being. Take your fill and will of love as ye will, when, where, and with whom ye will. Notice that you will not need the consent of your partners. It says take from whom ye will. That means that you can take your partner even if they do not give you permission. So if you want to rape, you will be free to rape. This code of conduct certainly would include love with a member of the same sex, because it says, take with whom ye will. The being continued. Lust, enjoy all things of sense. I believe the being was granting man the right to enjoy psychedelic drugs and other things of sense. it appears as if a lot of people have read a book of the law. But the following words are the most explosive that this being instructed Crowley to write. I will give you a war engine. With it ye shall smite the peoples, and none shall stand before you. Trample down the heathen, kill and torture. And then the being identified himself with this name. I was the splendorous serpent. The King James Version of the Bible in Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 refers to a being that showed up in the Garden of Eden after Adam and Eve were created. He appeared to them as a serpent. He appeared as a serpent. And the serpent had a name. Satan. Satan, the name of the serpent. So it appears as if Aleister Crowley had an experience with the being known as Satan, who asked him to write a book entitled The Book of the Law. And that book instructed the reader to kill and torture. And the Beatles believed that Aleister Crowley was one of their favorite celebrities. And this is the second individual shown in the collage on the album cover that I would like to bring to your attention. This is, of course, Karl Marx, once again, the so-called father of communism. This man's writings on his communist theories have resulted in the murder of multiple millions of innocent civilians after they were made public. And this is a repeat of his picture giving the same symbol as two of the Beatles. And the Beatles thought that he was one of their favorite celebrities. Now the last three examples of the lion's paw are rather disturbing. This is the first of those three. Time magazine of February the 17th, 1986 featured this portrait of the Christian televangelist Pat Robertson, clearly giving the lion's paw. This magazine was printed during Reverend Robertson's candidacy for the presidency of the United States. Reverend David Weber of the Southwest Radio Church is a fellow member with Robertson in an association of his fellow Christian radio and television broadcasters. He told his listeners on his nationwide radio broadcast that he met Reverend Robertson at a convention of this organization and directly asked him about this cover with a copy of it in his hands. Reverend Weber said that Reverend Robertson told him that he had fallen off of his horse and injured his arm or shoulder. That was Reverend Robertson's explanation for this unusual cover. I asked my family doctor about how he would treat an injured arm or shoulder from a fall from a horse, and he said that he would put the patient into a sling with instructions not to use the arm for a certain period of time. But Reverend Robertson has no sling. But we must ask how many of the others who have been shown so far displaying the lion's paw have fallen off of their horse. I would hazard a guess that Karl Marx had never ridden a horse, so that could not be his explanation for being photographed giving the lion's paw. But there is another explanation about why Reverend Robertson was photographed showing that he was giving the lion's paw. An internet friend of mine sent me an email that he received on January the 20th, 2010 from Pat Robertson's Christian Broadcast Network, abbreviated to the CBN. It offered another explanation for the Time magazine cover. The message read, "Pat is not now, nor has he ever been, a member of the Freemasons." About the cover, Pat had absolutely no idea that his pose had any special or hidden meaning. He objected, but the photographer insisted. Pat did not know at the time that there was some special meaning to the pose. But this photograph of him doing the same sign again seems to infer that he does know what the sign means and that he is knowingly showing it to the public. I will leave it to you to decide if he knows or not. This is the second disturbing example of a portrait or a picture of someone giving the lion's paw. It is a portrait of former President George Washington, the father of the nation of America. And it was found on the unnumbered page between pages 100 and 101 of the book entitled George Washington, the Man and the Mason by Charles H. Callahan, published in 1913. The book was authorized by the auspices of the Memorial Temple Committees of the George Washington Masonic National Memorial Association, the organization that was apparently created to promote the past membership of President Washington as a Mason. This is, of course, a photograph of their building in Washington, D.C. The next two pictures are of the same individual, and they are both rather disturbing. This is the first of the two pictures, and it shows the future Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, who was to be elected on March the 13th, 2013. This picture must have been taken while he was a Catholic priest and before he became the Pope, but it is clear that he is shown giving the lion's paw symbol. This is the second picture, and it shows him wearing the traditional white garments worn by a pope. This picture was taken in December of 2015 during one of his weekly audiences in St. Peter's Square in Rome, Italy. I do not know of anyone who has documented the fact that the Pope is a member of the Masonic Lodge, and if he is not, then this picture clearly shows that he is an initiate of the ancient mystery religion. Yes, these are rather disturbing pictures. This might be a good time to discuss something that is not directly related to the lion's paw, but it does have a bearing on the entire subject of the ancient mystery religion. This is the traditional logo of the National Republican Party. It is a cartoon representation of an elephant, and of course features the use of the three colors of the American flag, the red, white, and blue. Please notice that the upper part of the elephant contains three white stars with the traditional two legs down and one leg up. Of course, these stars are the same as are posted on the American flag, with 1 point up and 2 points down. But something changed in the year 2000, just prior to the first year of George W. Bush's administration. And this is an example of the new elephant logo, showing that the three stars were turned upside down with 1 point down and 2 points up. And to explain what this new form of the stars represents, I would like to refer to the explanation of the stars in this book entitled History of Freemasonry and Concordant Orders, published in 1891. This is my personal library copy of this book that someone gave me several years ago because they knew I was researching the Masonic Lodge. This is the title page, showing that it is an official Masonic book published in London, England. I have put a border around the identification of who wrote the articles inside the book, and it reads, written by a board of editors. This is the first page of a listing of these editors. If you counted the names, you would find that there were 78 of these writers, and furthermore, they were all high-ranking members of the Masonic Lodge. This is page 49 of the book, and it discusses the upside-down star. And I have put the red rectangle around the pertinent paragraph. It reads, this star represents God, all that is pure, virtuous, and good, when represented with one point upward. But when turned with one point down, it represents evil, all that is opposed to the good, pure, and virtuous. In fine, it represents the goat of Mendes as shown inside the star. It is not surprising that one of the websites on the internet said that the goat of Mendes can be traced back to ancient Egypt. This is a modern statue of the goat of Mendes, also called Baphomet. It was originally created to be placed in Oklahoma City besides a monument of the Ten Commandments, but the state legislature removed the monument, and the Satanists who created the statue had to look elsewhere. This is my personal copy of a book written by self-professed witch named Doreen Valiente, who put a drawing of Baphomet on her cover. This drawing was the work of Eliphas Levi, an occult writer, in 1856. I have put a red rectangle around his signature in the base. It appears that it was the model for the statue created by the Satanists. This is the second page I would like to show you. It is numbered page 101 of this book. And these are the pertinent sentences inside the red rectangle. This is a close-up of that section. I will type out the specific sentences that I think are the important ones. According to the direction of its rays, this absolute symbol represents good or evil, order or disorder, or the accursed goat of Mendes. And then the editors encourage the readers to read page 49 as a supplement to this page. It is Lucifer. When it elevates two of its points, it represents Satan, or the goat of the mysteries. And when it elevates one of its points, it represents the Savior, goodness, or virtue. And here are three stars that represent Lucifer, or the goat of the mysteries, the goat of Mendes, and they are shown in the logo of the Republican Party. There is one more use of the inverted pentagram that I would like to bring to your attention, and that is in the Eastern Star, a Masonic organization intended primarily for women, but third-degree male Masons and their female relatives over the age of 18 may join as well. This is their official Masonic symbol, a five-pointed star turned over, representing the goat of Mendes, or it is Lucifer. And here is a photograph of the Eastern Star Fez, displaying the symbol of Lucifer, the devil. I found this picture on Google Images, and it says that Eastern Star exposed as the Church of Satan. So someone else has told us the truth. And lastly, here is the Star of Lucifer, proudly displayed publicly on a telephone pole near you. Now I must ask the question, what does this change in 2000 or so tell us? It must have a purpose, and I think this is it. Let me mention that quote from Manly P. Hall that I've shown before, as to what these symbols are for. Symbolism fulfilled the dual office of concealing the sacred truths from the uninitiated and revealing them to those qualified to understand the symbols. What Mr. Hall just said was that those who believe in this mystery religion use symbols to let other initiates know that they are indeed members as well. So the changes in this symbol was to tell the initiates that the Republican Party was now totally under the control of the ancient mystery religion. What other explanation makes sense? The change was done for a reason, and I think this was it. The Republican Party was now totally under the control of the ancient mystery religion. I would like to end this presentation by asking and then attempting to answer what the lion's paw symbol is concealing from the people of the world, and the three quotes that follow might answer that question. Some of the Masonic leaders admit in their writings that there are two layers inside the Masonic Lodge. This is the first of a series of quotes that come from Manly P. Hall, a 33rd degree Mason. Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect. The Invisible Society is a secret fraternity dedicated to a mysterious secret. So one layer of the Masonic Lodge conceals itself from the other, and one of the ways they identify themselves to other initiates is through the lion's paw. The second layer inside the Masonic Lodge is busy, according to this additional quote from Mr. Hall. The ancient initiates are the invisible powers behind the thrones of earth. That means that Mr. Hall is claiming that they are the power behind the governments of the world. And men are but marionettes. Here he's writing about you and me. We are dancing while the invisible ones pull the strings. These initiates are part of a worldwide mystery religion that is 6,000 years old in every culture on every continent. Another Mason who has written on the subject of the second layer is Arthur Edward Waite, another 33rd degree Mason who wrote in his book entitled The Real History of the Rosicrucians. They are another secret society like the Freemasons. Beneath the broad tide of human history, there flows the stealthy undercurrents of the secret societies, meaning I believe the Masons and others, which frequently determine in the depths the changes that take place upon the surface. I would like to end this presentation with a discussion of an individual who represents the perfect example of all that I've covered so far, and that individual is Fidel Castro, the communist revolutionary dictator of Cuba, who passed away in 2016. I would like to provide you with 4 specific instances of his use of a concealed number 33 in his successful communist revolution that replaced an elected government with a communist dictatorship. Castro named his communist revolution that removed the government of the president of Cuba, Fulgencio Batista, the 26th of July movement. While I am here, I would like to discuss the national flag of Cuba. It also has a star, and you will notice that it is shown in the traditional way the star is depicted when it represents God, all that is pure, virtuous, and good, when represented with one point upward. Now look again at this picture of Fidel Castro and how the national flag is draped so that the star is shown with 2 points up and 1 point down. This might, of course, be a coincidence, but after reviewing the previous discussion of what the star represents, it might not be a coincidence. It might be that Fidel Castro did know what the star represents when it is shown with 2 points up and 1 point down. Let me continue with the discussion and we will see if he did. To repeat what I just discussed, Fidel Castro named his revolution the 26th of July movement. July is the 7th month of the year, and if you add in the number 26, you will total the numbers to equal 33, the number of the highest degree inside the Masonic Lodge. Number 2, Castro's guerrilla army attacked the Moncada barracks of the Cuban army to start his revolution on July the 26th, 1953. July is the 7th month of the year, plus the numbers of the day at 2, plus 6, and the year of plus 1, plus 9, plus 2, and plus 6, and you will total the number of the highest degree inside the Masonic Lodge, the number 33. Number 3, Castro's guerrilla army rolled victoriously into Havana, Cuba's capital, on January the 8th, 1959, and claimed the government of Cuba. January is the first month of the year, plus 8, plus 1, plus 9, plus 5, plus 9 equals 33, the number of the highest degree inside the Masonic Lodge. Number 4, Castro was sworn in as Prime Minister of Cuba, meaning he became the dictator of the communist nation of Cuba on February the 16th, 1959. February is the second month, plus 1, plus 6, plus 1, plus 9, plus 5, plus 9 equals 33, the number of the highest degree inside the Masonic Lodge. But you say this is all a coincidence because there's no evidence that Fidel was a Mason, nor have I been able to find any known photographs of him giving the lion's paw symbol. And I say that is exactly the response they are hoping for, because this use of concealed numbers is only intended for the initiates of the ancient mystery religion. The average American sees the evidence of a conspiracy, but they do not believe it, so they let it pass without comment. And yes, I must mention that there was a human cost of the Cuban Revolution. A University of Hawaii historian by the name of R.J. Rommel made a study in 1987 of the number of deaths in Castro's revolution. He reported that it was a difficult task because no one kept records during the revolution. But he claimed that credible estimates of the number of the deaths because of the communist revolution ran from 35,000 to 141,000 with an average of 73,000. So now the world knows that there is a second layer of initiates in a mystery religion that is actually the secret power behind the thrones, meaning the governments of the earth. And one of the ways the initiates conceal their involvement is through a symbol that only a few in the world will recognize. And that symbol is called the lion's paw.